Good morning and welcome, everybody. So glad that you could join us for BetaBagels. As I have my wrapped bagel here, which I'm on a special diet and can't eat, I will just stare at it. But I do have my beautiful black coffee in my internet famous PETA mug where rats have rights. We've had such an interesting 4 years here in New York City, where our lovely organization, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, actually launched a campaign when Eric Adams became mayor, really talking about how rats also have rights. Rats are also fellow New Yorkers, which is a very unique experience to live with. I had the granola scared out of me this morning as I was waiting for the one train, and all of a sudden a little tiny baby rat ran over my foot. I'm glad to see all of the human New Yorkers here with us. My name is Noel Hidalgo. I'm from BetaNYC. My pronouns are he, him. Today is Friday, December 19th, and we are hosting BetaBagels with guests from the New York City Democratic Socialists of America Tech Action Working Group, Pilot Pitchfest, the Public Sector Job Board, Tech Mayor, and Tech NYC. Today's agenda is going to be brief. I mean, we've got a lot to talk about here. We're going to start with the tech conversation in 2 minutes, and then we're going to have our panelists introduce you to their thoughts and their recommendations, and then we're going to be doing Q&A. If you do not want to have your camera on during the Q&A session, feel free to hop into the chat and go ahead and enter it in, and one of our staff will be able to reiterate that question. And before we begin, I want to give great thanks to the BetaNYC team for quickly putting this together. Thank you, Duncan, for wrangling all of these amazing presenters. And thank you to Katie and Anthony here at the CUNY Tech Space, CUNY Public Interest Tech Lab pop-up here inside of the Oculus. If you haven't been in this particular room, this is a very, very unique storefront where you can come in and step into the future and experience a lot of different visions of public interest technology. I'm sorry? All right, I hear somebody coming off of mute. What I'd like to say is also recognize that we are on essentially unceded grounds. We are colonizers and occupiers of this particular lands, and this is unceded Lenape homeland. We have a unique opportunity in the world that we live in, and to follow through in the long tail vision that the Lenape people held when the Dutch came. They wondered, how do these people exist? They seemingly are living in harmony with the environment, and that there were multiple tribes. And according to the Dutch, looking at kind of the Lenape relationships and intertribal agreements, the Lenape believed that nobody could own the land because nobody could own the air and nobody could own the sea. And so we are here as caretakers of the future, and that is embodied here in the Public Interest Tech pop-up, as well as in BetaNYC's mission to make sure that all New Yorkers have access to information and use open data and technology to improve our collective communities. BetaNYC has 3 core pillars, how we have been working to support New Yorkers. First and foremost has been our Civic Innovation Fellowship, which trains CUNY students in civics and data analytics. You may have met them through our Mapping for Equity work, and we're proud to have the relationship with the CUNY Public Interest Tech Lab to help continue to provide us Civic Innovation Fellows. We have our Civic Innovation Lab itself, where we help build tools with community stakeholders to help data be more accessible. If you're ever wondering what is the political or administrative boundaries, check out our amazing map called Boundaries Map. And then lastly, we have our public programs where we get people who are interested in open data and civics, and and we bring them together to address the data literacy and the information literacy. And you are now attending one of our public data literacy programs. Today's speakers are five amazing New Yorkers, Catherine, Rebecca, Aiden, Kara, and Alex. I'm going to have them introduce themselves. We'd like to hear you talk about who you are, what is your organization, and what are you presenting to the next administration? And if you could give us three high-level overviews. So with that, I'm going to call on Catherine to start us off.
Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine Jin. Excited to see a lot of familiar faces, both on the panel and in the audience. Really happy and honored to have been invited to participate today. My pronouns are she, her. I'm based in Queens, and I'm an organizer with NYC-DSA's Tech Action Working Group, where we focus on opposing big tech hegemony and advancing digital justice, working on issues like opposing hyperscaler data centers being built upstate New York and advocating for municipal broadband. Basically, how technology infrastructure affects working class Americans. I've advised State Senator Kristen Gonzalez on technology legislation, most recently helping rewrite the New York Privacy Act. And for the past month, I've been serving with Noel on Zoran's technology transition subcommittee, where we've been investigating and interviewing current and former OTI staff to figure out what's actually broken and how to fix it. To answer Noel's question, hopefully quickly, about what we're presenting to the admin in three high-level overviews. This work actually started much earlier this year, driven by city workers within NYC-DSA who were living these failures every day, watching talented colleagues leave, fighting budget processes that blocked hiring, seeing contractors get paid to build systems that didn't necessarily work. And they brought a lot of expertise and frustration that ended up shaping our analysis. We developed some recommendations for the city that, if I had to put in three buckets, were first around reorganizing city technology leadership, establishing a mayor's office of digital services, rebuilding the mayor's office of digital analytics as an independent analytical office so we can know where childcare deserts are and what policies are actually working. The idea is that infrastructure operations is different from service delivery. These require both different skills and rhythms. The second is to build public capacity, fix the OMB budget process that forces contractor dependence, impose 60-day SLAs on hiring decisions, make backfills automatic, modernize civil service hiring as much as we can. I know that does happen on this state level. And then lastly, corporate accountability. How can we tackle procurement dysfunction, terminate contracts that aren't delivering, like the My City project, publishing all master service agreements, implementing algorithmic accountability with real teeth. And then lastly, no technology for service delivery getting repurposed for surveillance. I think ultimately I've learned so much from all of the experts in this space, and the city really truly has a bunch of talented technologists who've built really amazing programs despite all the odds. They've been unsupported in this system that right now feeds a lot of contractors instead. And what's not missing is the capability, it's the political will. So really excited to talk about this political moment with everyone. Thank you.
Can you hear me? All right. I'm going to go to our next contestant, Rebecca.
Everyone, it's great to see so many familiar faces here. I'm very excited to be part of this group. I am Rebecca Heywood. I run the Public Sector Job Board, which is a civic tech newsletter focused on both tech and innovation resources, as well as jobs in government, working with folks who are interested in transitioning into the public sector across the country. I'm also a former New York City government employee. I've worked at DOT, at DCAS, and at the Office of Emergency Management. And my career has really been focused on how can we improve how government delivers? How do we make sure that our back office operations are supporting our policy and delivery goals so that we can deliver for the people and provide the impact that we we promise at the outset. I have been advocating for a long time about how we think about back office. Most recently, writing about what it will take to modernize the civil service system in New York City, and also have some forthcoming work coming out on thinking about tech procurement and how we think about digital services across the city. In terms of the high-level overview of recommendations I have for the incoming administration, one is really at the foremost, how do we make our civil service system easier for everyone to understand and use, whether you are an applicant coming into the city, whether you are a staff member navigating your own civil service status, whether you're a hiring manager looking to bring staff on, or whether you're an HR staff member, director, really thinking about how to partner strategically with your organization. There's so much that the city can do independently that it has the ability to do. And we need to take advantage of that to really make sure that we have a civil service system and a hiring system that's supporting our goals and not limiting us. Beyond that, really thinking about how we partner with others in the space, how we partner with the state, how we partner with our labor unions, how we partner with other stakeholders to really rethink what we need from a civil service system and from other systems in the 21st century. What do we need today and beyond to make sure that we can deliver on an affordability agenda or anything else that comes to date. Finally, there are others we really need to be thinking about how we build technology, how we build New Yorkers interact with the city primarily through technology, whether it's about how agencies use their data and process their information, whether it's about how you find information about benefits you can be eligible for, information about your child's school. And we need to make sure that we're setting up our back office operations, whether that's, again, HR, finance, procurement, technology, to be strategic partners in delivering for New Yorkers and not just a transactional part of the puzzle. And so with that, with really harnessing how government works in order to be strategic about how we achieve our policy goals, we can really help make sure that we make New York a place of a high quality of life and move forward with an incredible vision.
Go to Aiden.
Hello, I'm Aiden Feldman. I am here representing Tech Mayor. Personal background is that I have worked in civic technology for 11 years at the federal, state, and local levels, and do a lot of work around kind of making systems and processes better behind the scenes, a lot of the back office stuff that Rebecca was just mentioning. I also teach technology and data for policy at Columbia and NYU, and have another life as a modern dancer. So Tech Mayor is a informal group of civic technologists, people who are interested in advancing kind of the city's ability to deliver. The big promises that are made by, the incoming mayor, every mayor ever, don't happen without technology, even if technology isn't the point. So our group is really about how do we build up capacity, deliver value quickly, and ensure excellent services for all of these things that are not technology focused, right? Free buses, affordable housing, like all of these things, technology is involved. And yeah, it's both, in our view, about central capacity for like kind of shared services, as well as additional capacity and reduced friction within agencies to solve their own needs and use technology to deliver on these promises.
All right. We're going to go to Kara next. Muted.
There we go.
There we are.
Hear me? Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. My name is Kara Echo. I'm really excited to be here and very much agree with the comments that Catherine and others made that the talent to address improving the technical capabilities of New York City government very much exists within the city already. And that's the premise of the organization that I helped start called the Pilot Pitchfest. We are essentially a matchmaking event that pairs what we like to call public entrepreneurs in city agencies with technical support from universities, and as of this year, with civic tech volunteers as well. We actually are going to be rebranding in the new year to Pilot New York, which is the name of a report that I wrote with the New York City Economic Development Corporation about 3 years ago at this point that outlined sort of a vision for how to improve innovation capabilities across New York City agencies. That was a byproduct of going around and interviewing folks who were sort of the designated tech or innovation lead within their agency. We're a philanthropically funded program supported by Sloan, Revson, and Tao, all local foundations to whom we're incredibly grateful. And I'd say in terms of our policy priorities or sort of our thesis on what the new administration could do to really make a difference, there's four different planks. First is really identifying and elevating the entrepreneurs that already exist within New York City government agencies. I've really been stunned. We have this annual event where we invite people to come and present their problem statements by the amount of immense talent that exists, even, across all levels of New York City government, from junior analysts to deputy commissioners who have great ideas for how to leverage technology within their agency, but often their voices are not heard because of politics and hierarchy and the way agencies are organized. The Port Authority has a really interesting program where if you have an idea for a technology you want to implement, you can actually pitch it to their executive team. And with their buy-in, you then get support to run your pilot, as well as a $2,000 bonus for going above and beyond your day-to-day duties. I think programs like that could potentially be scalable to the city. Secondly, we think that the city could be doing more to leverage universities' research capacities. New York has more tier one research universities than any other major cities, yet there isn't really a centralized matchmaking function today between city needs and university talent. We are attempting to build that out. Third, we think there's opportunities for the mayor and any future administration to sort of be proactive and tapping into the city's expert class. This would almost be kind of like an antidote to Doge, and that we think it's really important that agencies sort of stay in control when they are working with civic tech volunteers. But there is an amazing civic tech volunteer community within the city of New York that would be very happy to come forward and help the city. And that given the momentum around the campaign, there's sort of a really natural opportunity to leverage that community more proactively. And then the last element of sort of what we're focused on is procurement. It didn't get much coverage because it was sort of happening as the last administration was falling apart a bit. But about a year ago, New York City adopted challenge-based procurement, which is essentially a legal mechanism by which agencies can present problem statements to which non-traditional government contractors, folks who are not used to doing business with the government, can respond with how they would go about addressing that problem statement. The first few challenges are just starting to launch. In particular, there was one that was launched yesterday called the Pantry Link Challenge, which is focused on emergency food assistance. This is a powerful procurement mechanism that should have the effect of bringing in non-traditional government contractors if done properly. And so this is a power that I really hope that the new administration comes in and utilizes to its fullest effects to diversify who's working with the city.
Great. Thank you. And Alex.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this morning. And thank you to the Beta NYC team for bringing us all together on a very rainy Friday morning. I'm Alex Propoulos. I head up policy and government relations work at Tech NYC. By background of me, I am a native New Yorker. I cannot say born and bred because I was technically born in New Jersey, but I spent my entire life here, public school product. come back, and I'm coming to you live from Brooklyn this morning. And more about Tech NYC. We are an organization that represents New York City's tech ecosystem, from the smaller startup companies to all the way to the sort of larger companies that have tens of thousands of employees here in New York City. And we sort of have a couple of different buckets in which we work in. One is sort of we're the convener of a lot of the tech community. We run programs like AI Demo Night, where startups come and they sort of demo their AI products to other engineers and developers, and they sort of network and communicate that way. We also do a lot of work with nonprofits in New York City through our foundation. We run a program called Decoded Futures, which does AI upskilling for New York City-based nonprofits. We've upskilled over 200 New York City-based nonprofits, teaching them how to build customized AI tools to help them with their workflows or their engagement with their communities that they're serving. And then the final bucket, which is where I focus a lot of my time and energy on, is on the policy space, which is thinking about how we can ensure that New York and New York City in particular is the best possible place for a company to start and grow in the tech space, and also how we can attract more companies to come from California to New York to expand and grow their operations here. And so we've been spending a lot of time thinking about what a new administration means and some of the things that we really are focusing in on. And I don't want to be redundant, because I know some of these things have also been touched on by the folks who have spoken before me. But I think really thinking about how we are modernizing New York City government through smarter tech adoption. And I think that starts with empowering leadership within City Hall to lead tech transformation across multiple agencies. So centering that in within the deputy mayors, thinking about how we're unlocking city data to drive innovation. The city has so much data on its hands. We have an open data portal, but obviously there can be more that can be done to allow for innovation, technology, and more of the startups to be able to collaborate with city government. And then two last pieces, which I think are a little bit different, is thinking about how we are building AI and computing literacy for all New Yorkers. So we've at Tech NYC have been working very closely with the public school system to run a CS fair every year. I think it's the largest CS fair for public school students on the East Coast, if perhaps maybe the entire country. It's done at the Armory every year, and we bring in hundreds of companies to show thousands of public school students, mostly high schoolers, sort of the avenues that are available to them, and how can we center that around a broader sort of push for AI literacy in the K through 12 education system. How are we expanding teacher training? And then how are we empowering local organizations, CBOs, nonprofits to be able to go and engage their communities to ensure that literacy is sort of well-rounded? And then the last piece I think we'll touch on, and it wasn't in the document we put out earlier this year, but it's something we've been working very closely on with a lot of the tech workforce groups like Pursuit and Perscolas, is thinking about how we are transforming the tech workforce pipeline here in New York. There are thousands of folks in the city who are being upskilled in coding, in AI skills, and how can we leverage the opportunity to engage with city government and use these folks who are New Yorkers and want to give back to be able to come in and think about how they can modernize various agencies that may be of interest to them. Because not every job needs to be into the private sector, right? Is a collaboration between the public sector and the private sector on so many avenues, but we can build out more of that talent pipeline to deliver for modernizing city government.
Great. We have, I will follow up with you on that one, because we've been working on CUNY students, and I'd love to figure out how CUNY students interface with that exact pipeline. That's actually what the CUNY Public Interest Tech Lab is also working on. So that is a real clear list of things we need to see this city work on. It is a unique moment when you have the tech industry, as well as advocates, as well as government workers or former government workers, all saying the exact same thing, which is that there needs to be clear leadership in technology, that we need to figure out how to embrace a broad swath of tools to ensure that our government operates for the century that we're in. I I want to go back to Kara to talk about how the Pilot Pitchfest, like how do you imagine and what is your hope for the Pilot Pitchfest going into agencies, or excuse me, Pilot New York? How do you imagine that going into agencies and having them lift up their desires to solve their own problems?
Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting journey in that we've run the event 2 times, and in the second year, we were oversubscribed from demand from the research community and the civic tech community to work with the city relative to projects that were presented from agencies. So just to give a sense of numbers, we had 50 individuals from agencies come and present their projects, and then we had 250 researchers apply to work on those projects, and 112 civic technologists volunteer to work on those projects. And so it's a two-sided marketplace, constant balancing act. That was like 3x growth relative to what we saw in the first year. And so now one of our big pushes is just getting the word out to more agencies. We're very fortunate now to be working with New York City Service, which is the city's program through which if you want to say go plant trees on the weekend for an agency, you can do that. And so we're basically setting it up as another formal channel through which if you want to volunteer your time to work on a technology project, for example, there's a way for you to do that. And so the hope is really, or the vision is to find a way to help the city of New York really leverage the expert resources that, again, already exist within our city.
Thank you. And Catherine, can you expand on how the government workers are also joining in campaigns to help articulate the problems that need to be addressed, and what are the broader campaigns that you're hoping for to bloom come January?
Yeah, great question. So I think that um, the way so I think it's important that a lot of this innovation or change is driven by people who have direct experience in delivering these services that we're discussing. That's why we try to keep our discussions anchored as firmly as possible to feedback that we're receiving from people within OTI or technology functions at all levels. I think that it also shows that there's a true appetite within government to also meet this moment. I think from my conversations, it does sound like a lot of government workers spent the last 4 years feeling relatively hopeless. And now the new change in administration represents an opportunity for, revitalized building. And I think, again, that keeps coming back to the same point of how we do have the talent, and in many ways, we do have the capacity, but need to think better about how we can best support these people. And it's really exciting to hear Kara's work. I think the idea of our mayor perhaps having like some kind of like public facing communication around technology, whether it's programs like that or like hackathons, will be a great way to like leverage the mayor's amazing communications abilities, as well as directly connecting civic technology and uplifting how technology underpins the affordability agenda. I think that these are also, what's been really motivating as well is that these are people who have been inside the system, who have been watching it fail, and now are leading and creating campaigns to change it. That's in general just the model I hope for, not necessarily outside experts telling the government what to do, but workers organizing alongside advocates and communities to build for reform. I think this could probably happen in a lot of ways related, especially to the affordability agenda. For example, like city workers joining with tenant organizations to demand housing systems that actually work, or technologists connecting with transit riders and transit nerds about pushing fare-free buses, or data analysts partnering with childcare advocates to map where the gaps are. So I think this is really also how you sustain reform beyond one admin. It's not just about the people that get appointed or the structures that get built, but building a real technology literate constituency that will fight for public digital capacity the same way people fight for public schools or public transit.
Excellent. Yesterday in City Council, Councilmember Gutierrez introduced two pieces of legislation, tech fellowships and one on tech job qualifications, Intro 1511 of 2025, and then Resolution 1189 of 2025. These are two very interesting bills for the fact that it would allow for civil service to be so civil service has to weigh different credentials, and what's interesting about these pieces of legislation is that it would essentially remove some of the education requirements that are needed within the civil service process, which limits individuals like myself who don't have a college degree to join government, and puts me lower on the list should I ever take a test. But Rebecca and Aiden, I know that both of you have been government workers. Rebecca, can you talk a little bit about the process that people have to go through and hop through to join city government as a civil service worker, and what are your hopes that are the kind of like the short-term improvements?
Yeah, it's exciting. I'll touch very briefly on those bills. I think anytime that we can have politicians thinking about the impact of our hiring system, of our civil service system on the ability to deliver, on people's ability to get city jobs or state jobs or things like that, it helps push forward this idea that the system does need to change, and it truly impacts. It's not just about the policy goals that we put forth. It's about how we're setting ourselves up to deliver for them. In terms of New York City's civil service system itself, it is one of the most complex in the country. There are 3,300 civil service titles, give or take, in New York City, all of which have a particular set of requirements around them. The vast majority of them, I think 80 to 85% of those, are considered competitive titles, which means there is some sort of exam process to be able to get a city job. You'll see if you go to the NYC job site, a lot of the jobs that are posted say you need to be reachable, you need to be permanent in this title on this list, or you need to be reachable on that list. I would bet that even a lot of city workers don't know quite how to figure out if you are reachable on a list, if you are on that list, things like that. With the number of titles that there are and the number of exams and things that need to be delivered, some of which are submit your resume and we'll give you a score based on your education and experience, but you need to know how to navigate that, what they're looking for, because honestly, for most of these roles, you need to score at least 100% to be able to be reachable on a list. There are others where you go and take an in-person, multi-hour, typically multiple choice exam that takes years to develop to get on a list. And these lists are created for these titles typically at least every 4 years. So if you didn't take an exam 4 years ago, you're kind of out of opportunity if someone's hiring for a job that you would have wanted that's hiring on that list. But you may never know what title they're going to choose because there are so many. We have titles in the civil service system for puppetry, but not for data science or for product manager or for these modern jobs. I bet a lot of the OIT folks would be very interested to know what all of your titles are, because it's hugely varied on doing the same work. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but there's a lot of things that we can do to make the system more transparent and ultimately to work better to deliver what the city is charged with delivering. We spend a ton of administrative resources delivering on something that no one fully understands. Back in 2019, we did work at DCAS on modernizing civil service. and found that one of the big challenges folks faced as city employees was you could ask 5 HR people the same question, they would give you 5 different answers. No one fully understands what that looks like. And so what we need to do is really think about how we make this system based on merit principles, which is not a bad thing. It was really designed to reduce nepotism, and that's not a bad thing. We want a system that everybody can access city jobs. But right now, if you don't have an inside lane to understand what that system is, it's very hard for you to access those jobs. We've inadvertently built something that takes nepotism a different way. If you don't have connections, it can be hard to enter city service sometimes. In terms of what we can do, there is a lot that we can do from day one. The DCAS is charged with administering the system and owns a lot of pieces of this. There are things we need to think about how we partner with the state and with our unions to collectively build a vision and a system that serves all of us, that protects city workers, but also allows us to deliver for New Yorkers. But with that, we can introduce transparency and proactive touch points throughout the process. You apply, you do something with DCAS, you may not hear for years about where you're at. Same goes with the hiring process. It can take not 6-9 months to hear about a potential interview for a job. It can take just as long from when you're offered a role to when your start date is because of OMB processes. We need to think about OMB. We got a new budget director yesterday. We need to think about OMB as a strategic partner in this and their role. There's at least 2 touch points when a role is being created and a vacancy is being filled. And then once a person we want to hire this person, OMB touches it again. We need to think about how to partner with them. And we have the data and the ability to do that, but we don't have the people. The systems DCAS has are not built to analyze data in that way. And we don't have the staff and the charge to really look at time to hire, look at where people are in the process, look and find our bottlenecks. We can introduce plain language into all of this. We can talk about civil service in plain language. We can redesign our city hiring and civil service web pages using a human-centered design approach, using a service design approach, and really think about how folks find information. We can create hiring manager specific training and information centrally. That, for the most part, does not exist. Our agencies are charged with creating that. Hiring managers play a key role in identifying titles, and they're not trained and taught what this looks like. How can they strategically partner with HR? How do we empower HR to be a strategic partner? And finally, we can also bring modern marketing and recruiting strategies at the exam level. If you have to take an exam years before you're thinking about joining city service, how do we recruit for that? How do we think about bringing new strategies into that, both for our competitive titles as well as non-competitive roles where you don't need to take an exam? There's a lot we can do. There's more that we need to do after that that's going to take longer. Pay scales, restructuring job series and titles to allow more clarity and career pathways and how jobs relate to modern roles. Working with the state on modernizing the system and bringing unions along as a strategic partner in all of this.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the question that Alex is asking in the question chat here. How much friction does current state regulation create in changing any of these processes?
Yeah, it's a great question. The state can do a lot to make it easier. So we need to when we think about state legislature and things like that, because civil service is a legislative process at the state level. Having it at that point and bringing them along, legislators and assembly people along as partners in this would do a lot across the state, because this isn't just New York City. Part of the challenge in New York City is that we weren't in compliance with state law for a long time. No one in the state was, because state law is very restrictive. And there was a lawsuit in 2008 that meant we had to come into compliance officially, because through the Bloomberg years and through many of the de Blasio years, we were not doing that. And that's a broader question. In terms of what the state actually controls, a lot of it is that. Some of it is what are the actual mechanics in the legislation that we have to follow. But then there's also interpretation and working together with the state on how do we interpret what an exam is and what evaluation looks like. There are civil service systems around the world that have changed that. The UK is a big example that had a very similar system and modernized starting in 2012 and provides some interesting examples of what we can do. And so those interpretations are a place that we can work together. When it comes to actual title series and things like that, so if we wanted to create data science roles, product roles, things like that, it both comes with the state and with unions, and really thinking pragmatically about what that looks like. There are things, though, the state can do. We need to advocate for the state to do at the state level, because then we can automatically use it at the city level, things like continuous recruitment. If the state introduced or title series around tech roles, for instance, that would make our lives much easier here in New York City. But DCAP does have a lot of control over this. And we really need to think, though, about how we partner and who's best positioned to do that. And I think in a lot of cases, the state has shown that they have an interest under this administration in doing that, and us being a strong advocate for that at the state level would be a faster way to achieve a lot of these things, given the alignment.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So Aidan, you were in the federal government, not to speak for that time in the federal government, but what is your hopes in regards to tech leadership when it comes down to actually being able to produce these types of solutions? I know that Tech Mayor has a very unique piece of advice that it's advocating for.
Yeah. So technology is everything, in the sense that, again, I said it earlier, but like kind of no program happens, no operation in government happens without technology. So yeah, I think it really comes down to like building up that capacity and like making these processes, whether it's hiring, whether it's anything else that's like come up as an example, right? How do we make that better through technology? And often that means simplification, right? Where can we like look for points of friction, taking the hiring example, and look for points of friction and just like kind of make them go away through automation or through like better sharing of data between agencies, whatever. So that, in terms of like tech leadership, that comes a few ways, in our opinion, which is both having strong centralized leadership who can make coordinated efforts across agencies happen, because a lot of things that are slow in government are usually because there's a lot of agencies involved. And then also, like, for those agencies, they may not have the teams to like even understand the processes, to like design better processes, to build better systems to serve those processes and thus end users. So yeah, it's kind of capacity throughout.
All right. So Alex, what does the role for, I'm going to ask you a similar question here. What does the role of tech leadership in the next administration look like? There is a question that was provided privately, is this about a strong CTO in charge of OTI, or does it and keep kind of like this monolithic tech agency, or is it about going back to some of the a mixture of previous models Reinvent Albany. I know that Martha's on the call. Martha, thank you for all of the great work that you've done, not only as a city worker, but all of the interviews. But Reinvent Albany put out a report looking at a different hierarchical structure and kind of like breaking out OTI as one, or do it as one entity, but then also creating some other independent. From the tech industry's point of view, Tech NYC's, like how do you see this tech leadership moving forward into the next administration?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think it's a combination of both, right? I think we do need strong leadership within OTI, right? A CTO to help spearhead and understand a lot of the technical aspects of things. But I think, as we can all recognize, right, and I think to Aiden's point before, is like a lot of the when stuff gets gummed up in the gears, it's because it's cross-functional across multiple agencies, and having a really strong centered even deputy mayor role, right, where they're thinking about tech infrastructure and tech workforce development, and government innovation, that's sitting in City Hall, that's working across a portfolio of agencies, I think is really vital to ensuring that A, we're not having like siloed integration and advancement. DOT isn't ahead of DEP, and across the board, we're sort of seeing like everyone coming up together. I think that's going to be really important, and that's more difficult to do for like an individual CTO within OTI. I think having leadership at the deputy mayor level, right, who can see sort of the 50,000-foot view, and then think about how they can uplift a broad cross section of agencies, I think is going to be really vital for New Yorkers to feel the impact right across the board, and for city workers to be able to feel like their agency is also getting the appropriate love and attention and tech sort of uplifting that I think we all agree needs to happen.
Thank you.
Can I add one thing, Noel?
Yep.
Forgot to say this earlier. So while I and Tech Mayor believe in like having a central agency, OTI do it, like name kind of doesn't matter, but seeing that central agency as serving the other agencies, right? So like what shared services can be available? Can they, procure things and thus make it easier for other agencies to sign on? Like the tooling, here are a bunch of like job descriptions that you can just take and, use to build up your teams, plugging holes, like these kinds of things. So while I do advocate for strong central leadership, by strong, I don't mean like controlling. By strong, I mean like with a lot of ability to influence and support.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we see how the internet works, right? The internet works on a series of shared protocols. You can stack things on top of that until entities get large enough where they can be able to, by their influence, to then dictate how those protocols are implemented. Obviously, in a large federated infrastructure like New York City, you can't have one single entity controlling everything, but you can go to the process where you can identify what are the standards, and make sure that those standards are carried throughout. Just to lift up the great work that people inside of OTI are working on, like we do have a New York City Digital Services Department. I don't know if you saw it, but NYC.gov is brand new. And that was a great work that the digital services team has put together. And it is about like making sure that NYC.gov actually is a solid platform where there's very clear user interface guidelines. So that way, every single agency, when you go to that agency website, it isn't something that's a throwback to the early aughts. But it is responsive, it is usable, it's clear, it's multidimensional in the different languages, it's screen reader accessible. I know that there are agencies right now that are still using content management systems that I have been complaining about for well over a decade. With the 5 minutes that are remaining here, I know that many of you have talked about, the strong role of digital services and what a digital services department should look like moving forward. With an open mic here, like how do you see the next administration taking on like a concrete digital services department? Is it something that sits under OTI, or is it something that like should be from a mayoral control and almost like the first deputy mayor's position? And I know that there's a couple of different takes on that. So, if anybody wants to talk about the role of open source in those software deployments, that would be great. Go first.
One thing I'll add that's maybe not quite to the question of where should a centralized team sit, but in talking and responding to what Aidan and Alex were saying, I think we need that leadership around understanding and pushing for transformation that takes place across agencies. I do want to also say one of my positions is that we also need to make sure that our agencies have the skills and talent and roles in-house to be able to manage their own tech platforms and be strong product owners of what they manage. We see a lot of that, the relationship between business lines and tech, and the role vendors play. Catherine brought up tech procurement and contracts earlier. Without empowering our agencies to be able to understand how technology gets built and advocate for what their users need in addition to that central role, we're going to keep some of that. It can't all be centralized. And so really thinking about how do we build out digital service capacity at the agency level so that we're in control of our contracts with platforms like Housing Connect or other things that sit at HPD that are outside of some of that NYC.gov platform. It takes both sides.
Great. Aidan, you have your hand up.
Sure. Whether it's a deputy mayor, whether it's a CTO, to be honest, I don't really care. I do think there's, I've seen a lot of articles of like, we need a deputy mayor for X. And, at some point there's too many deputy mayors. So I don't know how it gets organized, but the important thing is that technology is sort of thought of as a piece in everything rather than like something you think about separately. On the open source thing, the biggest value, I'm going to come at it from an open data angle. The biggest value of open data is actually reduced friction between agencies. Government is its own biggest user of open data because it's so hard to like find the right person or whatever in that other agency. So if we think about shared systems, or if you think about systems in the same way of if they're open source, if they're discoverable, these kinds of things, if they have APIs, like that then reduces the friction across agencies and makes everything work better. So it's almost more about the internal than the external for me.
Go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah, I think we spent a lot of time talking about structure, and I think that makes a lot of sense. But in many ways, structure, while it is important, also does end up relying a lot on leadership. We can draw an org chart perfectly and still fail if leadership doesn't prioritize it. For example, there were great kind of precedents for maybe digital services in executive function or in agencies, whether that's de Blasio's NYC Digital Service or planning labs. Those all got shut down when leadership changed. So that being said, placement does matter for one key reason. It does signal priority and determines, who has ultimate authority over a certain issue area. Part of our recommendation for a mayor's office of digital services under a deputy mayor of operations, not under OTI, is that when you bury a digital service team inside an organization, focus on infrastructure, focus on maintaining apps, it just gets consumed by internal needs. A former OTI leader did tell us directly, if you put this team under OTI, it will be focused on OTI staff needs. Not that that's bad, that's actually a perfect function of OTI, but for an Office of Digital Services that is trying to be a public-facing arm for Mayor Mamdani's affordability agenda, it's perhaps not the best placement. And so in our way, the goal is to keep the three layers working together, keep OTI focused on what it's good at, infrastructure, keeping the lights on, maintaining existing systems. That's the critical work. And then a mayor's office of digital services would handle new development aligned with mayoral priorities, childcare, housing, fast and free buses. And the idea as well was that, we could build agency level digital service capacity by embedding these teams on rotations with these priority agencies. And that idea is building trust and context and having, agency workers at all levels interact with one another, because we've also seen in the past that when there's interagency cooperation on the worker level, that's what really enables change in the future. And for staffing, a lot of this doesn't need to start from scratch. There's already the OTI's digital services team, the innovation team, NETCO's product and design folks. There's a lot of talent. And if we can uplift it and prioritize it, I think that'd be the best way to really underline how tech is central to the affordability agenda. And then lastly, around open data, I totally agree with what Aiden said. In a way, I've heard again, right now, a family has to prove its income 15 times to 15 different programs. That is a data sharing failure. And I think when agencies can't see what agencies already know, residents really do pay the price. So open data standards, proper data governance will really allow agencies to collaborate while protecting privacy. And again, I think this is another great argument of pulling MODA out of OTI, where they could really more effectively serve as the city's data librarian, and maintain a very clear directory of what exists so that teams can discover what's already been collected instead of duplicating efforts. But again, I really don't think necessarily where the boxes sit on the org chart is the end all be all. It's really about whether leadership will fight for this team, fight against vendor lobby, et cetera. That's really what's going to determine success or failure in my mind.
Great, thank you. Yes, we have 3 minutes remaining. We're going to go 3 minutes over. So can you, yes, please go ahead.
Sorry, I couldn't figure out how to raise my hand, but totally agree with everything that's been said. I think one aspect we haven't discussed, though, is the role of the Mayor's Office of Contract Services and procurement in delivering on a successful technology agenda. So in an ideal world, you would have an Office of Digital Services that is capable of building technology in-house. However, there will be likely a transition period in which there is some amount of contracting that is done with private sector vendors. And the Mayor's Office of Contract Services works in conjunction with all agencies across the city, each of whom have their own agency chief contracting officer. But unless MOCs can leverage, again, this new procurement tool that the city now has and other innovative procurement mechanisms, we're going to end up seeing kind of the same repeat failure on external technology procurement, because it's really hard for anyone other than large legacy traditional government contractors to compete in the system today.
Thank you. And Alex, one thing I really enjoy reading about the Tech NYC's policy on all of these government services working is that, New York City's tech workers are New Yorkers first and foremost. Can you just end with the importance of having all of the system work for all New Yorkers, not just those who have access?
Yeah, no, it's a great point, and I think part of what makes the New York tech ecosystem so vibrant is the fact that New York City is such a great place to live, right? And people want to be here in the environment. And I think you saw that, with even in the excitement about the new administration, right? The largest single base of donors from an individual company based in New York City for the Mamdani campaign was from Google. And I think probably a lot of people would have found that perhaps a little bit surprising, but I think there is a lot of that energy and understanding about sort of what the tech ecosystem and innovation ecosystem can provide for the city, and how you can be inspired by driving forward these goals and these missions of expanding childcare, free and fast buses, affordability, more affordable housing development. because at the end of the day, these folks are New Yorkers and they want to live in a place that is vibrant and continues to be vibrant for all folks that are there. And it's really interesting in this transition period of time, we've gotten a lot of inbound of like, how can I work for the Mamdani administration? How can I get involved? Because they recognize, and these are not folks in the policy space, these are folks who are founders, co-founders, engineers who are reaching out and saying, I'm inspired and I want to engage. And how does that work? Because I think there is that gap between folks who maybe have engaged or tried to get a city job before and folks who have worked in the private sector who now want to come over and dealing with some of that, those bureaucratic layers. I think is going to be something that we're going to want to figure out because I think what everyone has been saying is how do we tap into that existing resource, right? And how do we both take advantage of the folks who want to volunteer their time to help upskill, but also the folks who want to make the transition, right? And sort of bring that private sector experience and building projects and products and bringing that to various agencies within city government. And so I think there's a strong sense of that desire and excitement from the tech community at this point in time. And I think we all have a responsibility to work together to ensure that we're tapping in as much as we can to that base of resource to complement, right, and uplift the amazing tech folks that are at OTI and in city agencies already.
Thank you for that. And with that, thank you all for joining us for an hour. I will say that I'm an avid Tech NYC daily newsletter reader. I love also all of the events that DSA is organizing and all the campaigns that they're gearing up for in the new year when it comes down to the Internet for All, as well as the anti-surveillance work. It is really refreshing to see about the book clubs. So you are in community. If you are here and you're interested in finding out how to connect, subscribe to the Tech NYC newsletter, subscribe to Rebecca's newsletter, which comes out monthly, correct? Yeah. Join DSA Tech Action if you're looking for community that you can join and really follow up and be a political voice in the city. Tech Mayor is still looking for volunteers. Read their ideas. And lastly, you can join us at BetaNYC through NYC Open Data Week. Our call for proposals is still open. We are going to keep it open for a little bit longer. We also host monthly open data classes through the NYC Open Data Ambassadors Program, which is in partnership with the Office of Technology and Innovation. I should also add that Open Data Week is also with the Office of Tech and Innovation. We close out Open Data Week with our annual conference, NYC School of Data at CUNY Law School in Queens. And in the meantime, we have this really amazing space here in the Oculus in Lower Manhattan, hosted by the CUNY Public Interest Tech Lab. If you are an organization, if you are building an app and you want to have a little storefront and take over and ask questions and engage with the public, Anthony and Katie are really here to help make your dreams come true. This is a little bit of a dream that we had last year. And I'm so glad to be working with Katie and Anthony to explore all the spaces in between the ones and the zeros. And so many thanks to Duncan again, Jazzy, Anthony, and Katie for helping do the production here. And thank you again to all of the presenters and speakers. We will put this up on YouTube. We'll make sure that that YouTube description has all of the links to the articles that are represented here and more. If you know anybody on the tech transition team and you have a policy document that you want to make sure that the next administration reads, reach out to those transition team members because right now their job is essentially to lift up those voices of policy memos that they think should be in the hands of the next administration. And that actually goes for all transition team members. So it's an honor to be on the transition team and help lift up your voices in this next future that we're stepping into. Thanks, everybody. Have a safe and wonderful end of the year and happy holidays.